Recently, there's been a trend in gaming. However, this one isn't as new as you'd think. It's something gone, but wasn't quite forgotten.
First goddamn week of winter.
Now, most of you watching this, I'm sure when you think back to your first gaming experience or the first console you owned, you would say PlayStation, N64, or PC. And sorry, Sega fans, I know you were important, but I digress. Some of us growing up for the first time got to see wondrous landscapes in the game Spyro, memorable details in the adventures in Mario 64, and even a couple scary moments along the way. But the PS1 and N64 were victims of their time, having to utilize a lower polygon count, hardware limitations, as opposed to the graphic marvels you can see nowadays. The results? Yeah, nightmare fuel. While some things, yes, were truly ahead of their time, some of these limitations definitely added to the uncanny, unintentionally creepy territory. And naturally, some game studios took full advantage of this. Silent Hill, The Suffering, Parasite Eve, the list goes on and on. All of these games that I just mentioned share something in common outside of being just horror games. They are just a few of the games that laid the foundation of a new trend in gaming. And I, for one, tonight am 100% down for a trip through nostalgia territory. Tonight, I'd like to take you with me to look at a particular set of demos that, while I've played them before, and I'm sure a lot of you have already as well, we'll see tonight what I consider to be some of the coolest, unnerving, strange, and utterly terrifying resurrections of video game horror from days past. These are the haunted PS1 demo discs. For a little backstory, around March 2018, creator Brogan Hackett tried establishing more community centered around low-resolution horror game creators, hosting game jams around Halloween. It wasn't until 2 years later that the first demo disc for Haunted PS1 launched, bringing a collection of assorted indie horror-themed games to the forefront of gaming culture. On this episode tonight, we have 4 discs that we need to go through. The 2020 disc, the 2021 disc, Spectral Mall, and Flipside Frights. Now, on average, these discs have about 20 or so games on them, some long, some short, but all masterfully designed and true to their roots. I'll be picking a handful from each disc, so let's get into the weird world of low-poly horror within the Haunted PS1 demos.
I can't back down, and I can't resist. This little plastic box embodies an ancient evil. Within the disk drive, a fate far worse than death. I have to press the button. The pull is too strong. I shouldn't, but I must. No, not the
Unlike the discs that followed, the 2020 edition has a pretty, no pun intended, bare bones, albeit still really cool main menu, as opposed to the hub worlds that we'll see in later releases, such as the Museum and Spectral Mall. There are so many great games on this demo, but for tonight on this episode, I wanted to take at least a look at games that resonated with the type of horror I'm into without compromising the aesthetic of PS1 themed horror. First up on the list is a title called A Place Forbidden by developer Banzai Bonsai, which states the following. The Library of Ouroboros and its vast store of occult knowledge is finally within your reach. In the end, it was almost too easy to find. Well, let's get into the road to madness, shall we? The Library of Ouroboros. I'm finally here. It's almost anticlimactic to stand so easily within its walls after all these years of searching. But it's already pretty clear something is, well, off, to say the least. We play the role of a seeker of arcane, ancient knowledge, occult wisdom. But for now, what matters is we're here looking for something of, well, ungodly power. All of the doors around here are locked, however, and we resort to searching through various books and notes in hopes to find a way forward. While, yes, the books, the notes, and everything else give you a path forward and keys to unlocking the true mystery behind this place, it also gives subtle clues and foreshadowing towards the story itself, as if to warn the player that pushing forward with this quest for forbidden knowledge never, ever ends well. After a few more puzzles and notes, in particular one that only confirms that we fell prey to our own curiosity, we get a chance to really take in our surroundings. Gloomy, suffocating fog lingers outside amongst the dead trees, amplifying the foreboding sense of dread already present within the library's walls. And yeah, even intimidating furniture. Great. It no shit is about to be the least of our worries, though. A Place Forbidden really resonated with me, well, because it reminded me a lot of a more stripped down version of Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem, a game that I grew up on. Very, very few games get that particular flavor of cosmic horror down right. And there's definitely something interesting to me about the arrogance and hubris of mankind towards things beyond our scope of understanding. It's a visceral type of horror that hides its terror behind the psychological scope and not just tentacles and eldritch abominations. The concept of an endless cycle in conjunction with the imagery in this game, such as repeated rooms trapped in an endless loop, was also really, really cool. Although I'm sure the game's full release, I haven't played it yet even though it's been out for 6 goddamn years, I know I suck, will give us more insight to the cult worshipping whatever resides both in the library and our own mind now. The demo absolutely killed it with utilizing less is more horror and being trapped, a prisoner in both an endless maze of dusty, moldy books and our mind as well. Filth comes crawling out of the cracks. Well, yeah, this takes place in Detroit, so shocker, right? I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory before we get into this, but when Nowhere Found was in middle school, there were 2 games that I played religiously: Fear and Condemned: Criminal Origins. There's a special type of horror in games that revolve around the underbelly of a rotting society, and while the 2 aforementioned games aren't necessarily low poly by any stretch, there's a game on 2020's demo disc that evoked a feeling eerily similar to the one that I felt when I first played Fear and Condemned. Filthbreed. Off the rip, Filthbreed is one of those games that, even after playing it, stuck with me. And while it's a very short playthrough, there's more than one ending, we'll get to that. One day, I would love to see its creator, Bizarosa, come up with a full entry, because this game is truly something special. Our story begins with details of disappearances throughout the city of Detroit, specifically the homeless population. You play the role of a detective who was tasked to find one Louis Burton, a truck driver with priors believed to be the person of interest. We know this because Louis' former partner confirms his involvement but swears up and down he's not running or hiding. Burton also has ties to a local cult and is being held captive at an unknown location. Lucky for us, we get a tip regarding Burton's freight truck located on the outskirts of Detroit because it's always Detroit. So we're dispatched to go look for him, and this is where Filthbreed's gameplay takes off. You remember how I said this game has several endings? Yeah, you can wuss out, but mama didn't raise no bitch, so let's go find Louis. Inside the warehouse, the stench of decay and mold is prevalent. We find notes scattered throughout, from what sounds like mad ramblings and putrid living conditions, to even this charming letter. Yeah, Lucas is definitely into some freaky shit. Speaking of, they're kind enough to give us a gun, and Lucas is kind enough to let his presence finally be known. It's that time of the year, so I give him a good housewarming gift of several 9mm bullets and move on. The second ending in this game, Tactical Retreat, can also be achieved here, but again, I'm starting to feel like John Goodman in Arachnophobia, and I gotta find Louis at some point.
Rock and roll.
After another encounter with what I'm assuming to be cockroach-human hybrids, we find a finally accessible shutter door to the upper levels of the dilapidated warehouse, where we find an altar of sorts, a pretty cool note mentioning the lice mother, and now the maggot-infested corpse of Louis Burton. Hold on a minute, let me double tap. Just ahead of Louis' maggot-infested corpse, a caved-in section of the floor waits, and, probably foolishly, we take the plunge. Below us, Countless eggs and ridiculously large cockroaches infest and adorn the bile-covered floor and ceiling and walls. And with that, we brave our way to the final ending, Pest Control. As I said, Filthbreed has a lot of potential to be a great game, even almost 7 years past its release. Each ending is rewarding and has its own consequences, from the cult's possible relocation to maybe even never finding out the truth of what was actually happening there. It embodies that kind of old school horror that, to me, in a way, is pretty absent in a lot of games. Speaking of the endings, the one that really stuck with me was Tactical Retreats. Tactical Retreats ending states that you make the sensible decision to turn back, and that whatever's going on in that warehouse, it's not normal. You're not prepared for this kind of situation. The guys at the station have a field day with your report, and you're not the first rookie to lose their temper under pressure. The veterans will handle this one. 3 officers enter the warehouse, and only one of them makes it back, right leg maimed and infested with larvae. She's in a state of shock and can barely muster the words to explain what happened in there. She gasps something about feeding mom before collapsing. You know it's not your fault, but you still feel responsible for it, and you're granted a 2-week break from the force and never return. Man, thinking about that endings text and all the imagery that was associated with Filthbreed's disgustingly impressive world is definitely something that will stick with you hours, days even, after playing the game. For those of you who haven't gotten a chance to play this demo, I highly advise, if you have the ability to, go out, give it a shot, and feed yourself to the lice mother. Our next disc, the 2021 release, does things a little differently, and I'm actually happy for that, and you know what, you should be too. Unlike its predecessor, this entry takes us to a hub world, rather a museum, and yeah, there's a lot more than just games in here, and we'll get to that, don't worry. Honestly, the way that this hub world is designed is also incredibly cool and adds to the foreboding feeling these designers seek to capture, that liminal aesthetic of being alone and truly feeling like something's always watching you. So first on our list is, oh my god, they made this into a game. Dude, if you know, you know. So there's a lot of really cool cryptids out there, but outside of Mothman and the Dover Demon, one that always fascinated me was the Loveland Frogman. When you get a chance, look up the backstory, because yes, it's as crazy as it sounds and definitely shrouded in a lot of controversy and mythology. This game captures all of that perfectly. Again, kind of like Filthbreed, we play the role of a detective sent by a pretty shady agency to Loveland, Ohio. It's here that we come across a small trailer park where a series of disappearances have caught the attention of said agency. It's great to know they have this much faith in me that they'd send me with fuck all any backup whatsoever. I'm going to tell you right now, the atmosphere so far in this game, when you first started out, is incredibly unsettling, but strangely beautiful. It's really hard not to get lost in looking at the sunset, the marsh, but we can't help but feel as if it's like we're being watched, stalked. Anyways, Amidst the muddy ground, an abnormal number of, you guessed it, frogs meander around. And yeah, I guess because there's a marsh nearby, it would make sense, but if I saw this, I'd probably be a little concerned. In order to advance to the admin building to perhaps get a better bearing on our surroundings and our situation, we have to find what seems to be a small medallion or key to a mechanism that locks the gate, closing off our path. So you already know what that means. In order to get through, we gotta start looking around. As we trek through the trailer park, something becomes even more apparent. Where is everybody? It doesn't take long to stumble onto the root of our problems, however. After finding several key notes, items, and journal entries, we learn that this is ground zero for an epidemic-induced cult, going to such lengths as even distilling frog essence into alcohol, having unsuspecting victims ingest it, kidnapping, brainwashing. Yeah, I'm not going to get into that. You probably get the picture already. Just as we were getting comfortable with the idea that we were all alone here, once we finally collect the pieces of this said medallion, we can access the gate, press on, and hopefully figure out just what the hell is causing all this madness. But you probably already knew what it was. I mean, the agency that sent you out here had to tell you, right? I know there's an extended point of this demo where you find a surveillance configuration inside the main building, as well as get a return to what appears to be either the agency headquarters or some type of indoctrination facility. But I want to focus on the meat of what I think may be one of the best entries on this disc. There's something that can be said about a game that doesn't necessarily focus on ghosts or demons or cosmic monstrosities, but rather a good old-fashioned urban legend. Above all else, what really makes this game stand out is the atmosphere it evokes. That ambience that acts more like unnerving silence. The low light and the setting sun create an almost instinctual sense of urgency, despite playing the role of what seems to be an X-Files-esque investigator who's probably well-versed in dealing with this type of thing. And let's not forget the unshakable feeling of being watched at all times, knowing that you're not here to find anyone, but probably to be the Loveland Frog's next victim. Alright, now it's time to get into something a little darker than what I usually do. Of all the games I got to on this demo disc, there were two that I felt brought on a different type of horror. And it turns out that the one that I decided to end up covering has all of the hallmarks of horror games past, most specifically Silent Hill. I don't know what it is with body horror and low poly graphics, but it becomes, to me at least, more unsettling than it already is. Let me show you the corrupted flesh of the world of Apolysis. The rusted pipes and metal scaffolding streaks up in the waves of heat over the horizon, like a distant mirage bending into existence. Before me stands a monolith, a temple of machinery and metal. Its congregation was dissolved long ago. I feel compelled to come here. But is it just me trying to escape? Or is it something more that's drawing me? I hope I can find peace here. In the hellish landscapes of Apolysis, we are nothing more than a faceless, nameless husk, only referred to as a seeker. And although that may be the case, our character from the get-go comes off more as someone running away rather than trying to find something. Littered about this industrial wasteland, we find remnants of our past, a bike, a radio, and once we get to the front of the warehouse, there's text that our character doesn't seem to be able to comprehend, but somehow bores into our very subconscious, stating the following: dust, oil, rust, blood, this is my house, my husk. Come to me, wayward one. Come to me, seeker. All the pain we feel, the loneliness, it may be the embodiment of this place, but to us, it might just be our sanctuary, a place we can find escape, where our wayward soul can either drown out the horrors of our reality or escape it altogether. Once we finally make our way inside this desolate warehouse, we find that there is, in fact, a presence here, one that beckons out to us, bringing us further into both the physical and metaphorical heart of this nightmare. It is a world that, for all it's worth, embodies the manifestation of pain and hurt. Machinery more reminiscent of torture devices grind in painful rage, strange fleshy organs pulse upon the walls and rafters, and several altars to a goddess of ruin exist for us to encounter. Its power tearing our skin and flesh from our very bones, mocking us that this may be the fate we'll have to accept. To go along with that, one thing strange to note is that we find another body lying in the catwalks, as well as pinned to a wall appearing butchered, but described as failing metamorphosis. It's us. We're seeing ourselves, but as the game may suggest, these are our true selves. Broken, torn, foreign. The keys to shedding our skin to the goddess of metamorphosis, flesh, and sanctuary. To me, in a lot of ways, if there really was ever a spiritual successor to Silent Hill written by someone like Cronenberg or Clive Barker, this would be it. The filthy industrial setting mixed with the gruesome imagery really brought me back to those foggy, gritty environments of Silent Hill, but with a gory twist. That being said, these themes between the two are incredibly similar and pack one hell of a punch for how minimal this demo's story is, which to me, again, is awesome. It's an incredibly dismal story of transcending broken, abused flesh and body and mind and soul into something much more, our safe home, no matter how broken it may seem. Well, before we move on to the next, let's take a quick bathroom break. hold on. Well, holy shit, that's it. See, one thing I didn't get into that gets a little more elaborate in the next entry, Spectral Mall, is that there's quite a few Easter eggs and little secrets hidden within the hub worlds. And, well, I think we just found one of them. When you put these two pieces of graffiti together, you get the password for this computer in the museum lounge. And access to probably one of the coolest little details on here. It's a minigame. A minigame of sorts, and yet another one that packs a lot of creepy shit in a small package. This computer seems to belong to a group known as the Anomalous Research Department. And it seems like we've gained access to a collection of several emails, images, and even a video depicting several anomalous entities and events. And yes, the video game is the video file. Also, yeah, we're gonna play it. Video Incident 003. Acquired from police evidence of a double homicide. Video depicts... This tape opens up with a POV shot of our apparent perpetrator inside of a motel room absolutely littered with cigarettes and liquor bottles, and it's going to be pretty clear here in a second why this dude is so stressed out of his gourd. Yeah, we've got a body in the bathtub with a knife sticking out of his neck, and you can probably guess where this is about to go. Or not. A knock at the door heightens our paranoia, but again, no one is outside. It's just us. Until, of course, this happens. Are we losing our mind? Is the weight of our actions finally bearing down on our sanity? I was under the impression that we were probably already insane, or at least on the brink of... Hold on. Okay, I guess we know now what we need to do, but here's what's bothering me here. This was described as a double homicide in the email, yet there's only one body that we're about to go full-on Grady twins towards, so where the hell is the other... Oh. Okay, well I guess that makes sense. You know, I don't truly know why, but even if this wasn't a true demo, its execution was flawless. From the video right till the end with the computer completely bricking, you know, right after getting spammed from Beyond the Void and not embracing the light of whatever eldritch monstrosity this is. It was absolutely a wonderful experience, and if this ever was made into a full game, I would play the hell out of it. Well, suddenly I don't need to use the bathroom anymore because I already pissed and crapped my pants, so let's move on, because we've got some last minute shopping to take care of. In the last part, I briefly mentioned that the hub worlds of both 2021's disc and this one had secrets ready to be sought out for your pleasure. In Spectral Mall, however, this gets a little more elaborate. It turns out you have to navigate the mall itself, find key items, and complete tasks in order to unlock a majority of the games stationed around this now dilapidated, snowed-in mall. Speaking of, here's the backstory behind this one. The mall stood king among shopping locales. People of all kinds flocked to them, swarming store after store, purchasing copious amounts of tie-dyed fabric and greasy food and novelty knives. But now they are dead, and the corporate catacombs stand silent. Their only customers now are rats and cockroaches. Of late, though, there have been murmurs in the emptiness, flashes of too bright colors, flickers of wires, and flesh, strangled electric sounds, almost like screams. Brave or foolish souls have returned to the sites of their past, spurred by curiosity. The few who have returned, amidst their gibbering, mad cries, spoke of change, storefronts peddling wares that they do not contain, advertisements that flicker in the corner of one's eye, and distant, echoing footsteps coming from everywhere and nowhere in the dust-suffused halls. Your town bore one such decrepit mall, a hopeful tourist destination long since abandoned by the few teens that frequented it. Yet, you find yourself standing before it in the gloom for the first time in years. Lights flicker from within, tinny music emanates from disconnected speakers, and a phrase burns in your mind, as if carved with a knife. Well, that's really edgy. Yet again, the atmosphere in this hub world is both awesome and unnerving. Aside from the distant loudspeaker and wailing wind, we're stuck alone in the silence of this mall, its endless maze of hidden rooms and desolate hallways. While a lot of these games are meant to be horror games, here at Nowhere Found, we also enjoy the weird just as much as the scary and disturbing. Spectral Mall has 2 games on there that sure could be considered horror, but are more weird. And I'm all about that. First up, let me take you on a little trip to visit a good friend of mine, Gob. Created by Gamma Girl, while there's really not much in the way of a direct story, I'll give you this. We wake up in a room, filthy and disgusting, and of course we're hungry. At first glance, there is absolutely nothing in here that looks edible, much less appetizing, but nonetheless, we're not here to judge, so let's feed this cute little fellow. But of course, the fridge door is stuck, probably from whatever's growing inside of there, so now we have to find a way to open it. Gob prides itself on crafting ways for our character to explore the world that they live in and achieve tasks by pulling things apart or putting things together. And naturally, there's a surplus of items lying around. Much to our dismay, however, there's enough filth and clutter lying around that would make even an extreme hoarder blush, so it's up to us to find the items amidst all this mess. In the tub, surrounded by trash and God knows what else, we find a lighter. We get that, and in turn this burns off whatever filth or mold is growing on the fridge. Inside the fridge, all that's accessible, however, is just an aerosol can. We search around till we find the top, and then from there, we can unjam the door to this room, straight into yet another filthy, trash-littered underground subway tunnel. However, we're still hungry and we have a job to do, so let's continue on. A ways down the subway tunnel, there lies a lone vending machine, completely foreign amidst all this, and it so far stands as our only source for sustenance. But again, how do we get any food? Another puzzle we unlock by using the lighter gives us a key to a door which leads us to the sunny surface world, where we grab a baby's toy, a grabber, and return down to our room to break a piggy bank to get some change. Wait, hold on. What? I want to go back. Go back to that. This is, without a doubt, a stark contrast. Here we are, living in squalor and rot, tucked away in the dark, while above us the world is, for what we can see, nothing short of beautiful. But why? And why choose to be in this filth over that? It's a question that we can only speculate for now, because even at the end of this demo, we're forced to venture even further into the earth after running into another unfortunate stroke of bad luck. Really, the only thing I could make out of this was when it rains, it pours, and some people just enjoy living in that mindset. But I can't be sure. It's just a game after all, much less a snippet of one. Although I hope we get to see more of our friend Gob soon. Everything about this game to me is so cool. From the claymation renders, the atmosphere, and the style of gameplay, it honestly took me back to when I used to play a lot of Yoshi's Story on the N64. However, looking at Gob as more of a fever dream version of that game definitely separates itself from almost every other demo on this disc. Almost. And speaking of fever dreams, over on the last disc, a creator by the name of Fever Dream Johnny submitted a game called Peeb Adventures, and while I thought it would be fun to cover it, it doesn't really hold a candle to its spiritual successor, a game that combines some of the best elements of every game I can enjoy, and might be the best demo on any one of these discs. Welcome to Nowhere, Michigan. Set in a post-nuclear mishap world located in the state of Michigan, because just like Filthbreed with Detroit, of course it would be in Michigan too. We play the role of a young man named James set out to find his missing brother Alex in the town of Nowhere. If you could even call this a town, I guess. Right off the bat, we can tell we're going to be in for one hell of an experience. From insane, depraved townspeople, amnesiac, drug-addled cops, sentient monkey men, clowns and wizards, and whatever the fuck this is. Whatever the hell happened here seems to have warped the entire reality around the state of Michigan into a fever dream, and it's up to us to brave its secrets to find our lost family member. While of course making new friends and seeing some familiar faces along the way. After we acquire our first equipment piece, we can finally start exploring more of this surreal environment. From the ever-present, ever-watching eyes and strange entities in the Slumber District, the Vaporwave Dreamcore-influenced Knox's Basin, which features these cool guys right here. Yeah, good pun there, Johnny. The Helldivers are actually really interesting, but I'll get back to that shortly. And yep, even Hell, Michigan, where we find some pretty cool secrets and these two goofballs. Once everything is acquired, we finally get access to what I can only assume to be the core of this reactor, an area that may be the most abstract and warped. A platforming sequence takes us to a massive nerve cradle, where we drop inside and find a gun. A talking gun. Named Concord. You see, I was gonna save this part of the analysis for the boss fight because this is where this game finally clicked for me and why it was so good. In the game's description, it calls itself a Metroidvania, and I'm sure everybody knows what that means. But when you finally get conquered, Nowhere plays more like a boomer shooter, similar to Quake or Blood or Serious Sam, as demonstrated by me circle strafing this boss into oblivion. Yeah, been doing this since 2003. Biblically accurate Barbie over here didn't stand a chance. After pistol whipping this first boss into submission, Concord and James continue on the search for Alex, two of the most unlikely friends, braving this fever dream together. Nowhere, Michigan might be one of the best indie games I've played in a long time, and like I said, it wasn't horrifying by any stretch of the word, but definitely fit into that niche of weird shit that I hold close to my heart. It honestly felt like I was playing a game version of the ARG that I recently covered called On the Spot, with all the crazy anomalous stuff in it. Speaking of, I wonder how Z's doing. Well, I guess it's time to grab a concession for the road, because now we're on to the next disc.
okay, kid? Come on. We're almost there.
Oh, okay. Wait up.
The final disc that we'll look at in this video, and the most recent, is Flipside Frights. The intro to this one is pretty cool, and as far as a backstory goes, we need to fix Skelly and his buddies back to their spooky selves, and the only way to do it, you guessed it, play video games.
What the fuck? You gonna help me, kid? Shoot that bastard. Shoot.
I get to play video games?
So let's not keep our old pal waiting, shall we? You see, there's a lot of cheery and fun-filled This game 100% caught me by surprise. It shouldn't come as a shock that, once again, I adore cosmic horror, but this right here, this is an incredibly fresh take on the genre. This right here is the twisted dreamscape of Eclipsium. If Nowhere, Michigan was a fun fever dream, this is its bad trip counterpart. Gone are the vibrant hues and ridiculous imagery, and in its place, a menacing skyline gazes down at us. From this strange yet eerily familiar starting point, a rundown cabin in the middle of the woods, we set off into the wilderness, grabbed by an otherworldly pull that originates from something just as incomprehensible. All we know as of now in this demo is that the eclipse has brought on a terrible sort of madness. The further along we advance, it becomes more and more clear that this world is not ours. And as we're being watched by disembodied eyes, hell-bent on slowing our progress, our purpose becomes clear. We're definitely not here to explore. We're here to put an end to this. And as this world transforms, so do we. But don't fret, if you perish from whatever is pursuing you, well, yeah, this is pretty interesting. Our home, I suppose, or some type of anchor to the world we once called home, becomes our safe hub of sorts. Once we leave this spot of solace, however, it disappears, and we have to venture back out into the hellscape that consumes this game. Eclipsium is one of those games where the horror lies in what we, the player, can't understand or simply don't know. And this demo encapsulates that feeling perfectly in such a short span. It feels like a world within yet another world, and we slowly lose our grip on sanity as we pass through those veils. While playing it, I absolutely felt drawn in, and just like our final entry, I look forward to playing the full game and get the chance to unlock more of these secrets and hopefully conquer the horror that the eclipse brings before it consumes us all. And finally, we've reached the last game that I want to talk about. And I'm glad because not only is it one of the best on these discs, but I'd really hate to keep you waiting. I kind of hope that, this video gets pushed out and inspires all of you watching to give these a try if you haven't already. Let me set the scene for you. It's late at night. After a long day, you hop on your console of choice, hoping to pop in that one game you've been meaning to try out. You know you're an avid gamer, and specifically, you've been playing competitive shooters since you could hold a controller, so this feels finally like a dream come true. But all the servers are empty. I mean, it's not that late, right? Regardless, you jump straight into it, ready to belt someone in a 1v1 match. And finally, someone joins. Good thing they play for keeps and kills only, but if only you knew. If only you knew that the nightmare is just getting started. Created in 2019 by Beeswax Studio, No Players Online might be one of the most complete, haunting, unnerving experiences I've ever played in a long time. And yes, since its release, a full version has come out, and trust me, we will be coming back to visit this. We're gonna stick with the demo because holy shit is it a great game. Now, I'm not sure about all of you, but I do remember being bored out of my mind as a kid, and sometimes while playing a game, I'd just putz around an empty multiplayer map. While sure, I knew that no one else was playing, Kid Brain always stayed alert in a subconscious way, as if even just being in an empty location still made me feel like I was never truly alone. Yeah, this game takes that and cranks it up to 11. Without spoiling too much of the plot, it begins with us simply just logging into our computer, doing mundane, normal things. Surfing the web, checking game forums, playing the occasional Minesweeper when our online chat box pops off. A complete stranger messages us with no context outside of seeing us on the aforementioned gaming forum and asks us if we're interested to play a new alpha version of a game we've never heard of. And there's already an insane amount of red flags here in the chat, but hey, what's the worst that could happen, right? Plus, homeboy over here wants to play capture the flag and he plays for kills and clearly doesn't know the ass whipping he's about to get into. No one on yet. Naturally, after grabbing the flag while exploring, we reach the point where this clearly goes into what the fuck territory. We begin to hear the faint, haunting sound of classical music, followed by the random appearance of a record player in one section of the map, non-existent only a couple moments ago. And then, this happens. Yeah, I bet you won't run the fuck up on me. After our computer bricks, we get a sequence of nightmarish events and even a password to one of the other logins on the computer. Strange choice for a password, but I digress. What's even stranger still is that we find out that this profile on the computer is in fact the creator of the game that we just played. And unfortunately for us, this game isn't even close to over yet. Now, I don't want to get too much more into this because I think that you all should go play this game for yourselves, and I don't think anything else I could say could do this game any justice for how great it is. There's a claim that this title pioneered liminal horror games, and while I'm not super certain of that, it absolutely plays like it. It's a literal take on Ghost in the Machine, and I love it for that. And while it does incorporate cult-like elements into the plot, the idea of a spirit haunting a game like this, lonely and barren, is truly haunting. Adding to that, there was even a playable ARG, something I wish more games like this took a jab at. Seriously, if any of you get the chance, boot up the old Dell computer, download this game, and get ready to be immersed in the depths of isolation, tragedy, and the ghosts of our past sins. The gaming industry and community is volatile and constantly changing, but seeing these types of games come back into the front line really pleases me. I'm sure a lot of you that have subscribed to this channel and know what it's about grew up on these types of games, from Silent Hill, Clock Tower, Parasite Eve, and so on. And seeing these low poly graphics applied to newer games in the horror genre, especially those on the PS1 horror discs, it has to bring up a lot of nostalgia that we so desperately crave. Now, all of these games mentioned in the video have their own unique charm. From Filthbreed's dark halls and grotesque imagery, Apolysis and its love letter style to games like Silent Hill, Nowhere's surreal dreamscapes and twisted story from Gob's incredibly original style of animation, and No Players Online's interpretation of liminal horror and ghost stories. All of these games, including even the ones I didn't put in the video, have so much potential, yet stay loyal to their roots within low poly horror in order to achieve the most unnerving experience in gameplay. What strikes me most about this resurgence is how these indie developers understand something that big studios often miss. They know that horror doesn't need photorealistic graphics to crawl under your skin, and in fact, the original PlayStation's technical limitations, from chunky textures, warped polygons, and the way fog could hide loading zones but also created this suffocating atmosphere, these weren't flaws. These were features. They forced developers to rely on sound design and on the power of suggestion, on letting your imagination fill in the gaps. And your imagination is always worse than anything a developer or an author can show you, and it never fills them with anything good. The community around these games has grown into something special as well. The platform, specifically the one that I found this on, itch.io, hosts hundreds of these projects. It's really great to see this horror game development democratized in a way that wouldn't have been possible 20 years ago. And you don't need a massive budget or a huge team. You need creativity and an understanding of what makes horror work. And of course, the willingness to make something that looks like it crawled out of a CRT monitor from 1998. Another thing that's great about this is that these games often explore themes that mainstream horror won't touch. They get weird. They get controversial. They're not afraid to be confusing or to leave questions unanswered, and that's part of their DNA. The best horror has always lived in uncertainty, and it's in that space between what you know and what you fear. These games embrace that perfectly. Looking forward, I think this resurgence is more than a trend. Horror needs atmosphere. It needs restraint. It needs the courage to show less and suggest more. These low poly games prove that the old ways still work, maybe even work better, because they force developers to be creative with limitations rather than throwing processing power at problems. So whether you're here for the nostalgia, for the scares, or just because you appreciate games that do something different, this low poly horror renaissance has something for you. These developers are keeping a tradition alive while pushing it forward, and that's worth celebrating. If you want to support these creators, please go check out their games, leave reviews, share their work with friends who appreciate good horror. A lot of these projects are free to play, but even just a couple dollars goes a long way for a lot of these indie developers pouring their blood, sweat, tears, and soul into these experiences. Your support keeps this scene alive and tells these creators that what they're doing matters. Even if celebrating means locking your door before you play.